Welcome everybody at Studium Generale, corona-proof today. We've been out of the air since March, I think, and we really missed you, the audience and the interaction, of course. It's a hybrid Studium Generale, so we have people live here in the Agora, the audience, and we have a digital audience. We're live streaming the whole event. So also welcome to the people at home. I'm very happy that Hiska and Hiska Bakker and I will have Eelco Bosch van Rosenthal as our guest, the first program again. We're really looking forward to it. About very important elections, of course. It's influential for the whole world, what's going on in the United States. Eelco Bosch van Rosenthal, I'll introduce you, of course. He's a well-known journalist. He's working for Nieuwsuur, a Dutch television program. And he has a special love for the USA. He has been correspondent there for 4 years?
6 years.
6 years even, in the US. He made 2 beautiful documentaries about the USA, Droomland America, and recently the Slag om Texas, the battle for Texas. I think that's well translated. And Texas is a really fascinating state about which we will go in depth later, because Texas is changing from Republican color to Democratic color. There's a lot going on over there. Hiska and I will interview Eelco about several themes. To mention a few: climate change, Black Lives Matter, QAnon, that might be a bit cryptical, but we'll come to that. There is opportunity for you to ask questions. When we round off each theme, we will ask, so please join the discussion and ask Eelco whatever you want to know about the USA. But most importantly, we will start with the 2 candidates, Hiska, Biden and Trump. They're already projected behind us.
Yes.
On large scale.
The first theme is the characters of Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Both of whom I've never met, so...
Okay, but you know a lot of them, I know. They are the opponents, the Democratic candidate Joe Biden and the Republican one, Donald Trump. And we wonder who they are. We know Donald Trump, although how do we really know him? But Joe Biden, who was vice president for 8 years under Obama, is not very shining, not very outstanding. So we start with Joe Biden. Who is he? And we'll show a short video in which he talks with Trevor Noah in The Daily Show. Yeah. Just a short movie. You can watch it here, and you can watch it over there.
He's not going to be able to make things stick that aren't already real weaknesses on my part. And I have weaknesses for real.
What do you think some of those weaknesses are?
Well, I'm not going to advertise, no. But one of the weaknesses are because I always say what I think. No one ever has suggested that I don't mean what I say. Sometimes I say all that I mean. And that gets me in trouble. And sometimes it does. I get it. And my old stuttering days, occasionally come back, and I find myself just talking like that. And so, I sometimes make political gaffes. But you know the old expression, a gaffe in Washington is a politician telling the truth. The America's place in the world has been damaged significantly. The next president's going to inherit a world in disarray. Number 1. Number 2, at home, we are a divided nation in a consequential way. I've spent my whole career, and the one thing people give me credit and blame for is bringing both sides together, coming up with principled compromise. And so the 2 things, the reason I'm running, both those issues tend to be in my wheelhouse. Doesn't mean I'm going to get them right. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to make serious mistakes. But the point is, I take responsibility for the mistakes.
Okay. He seems at ease, Joe Biden. He has a sense of humor. He tells about his weaknesses, about his stuttering. He even tries to stutter. He looks like a softie, to me.
In what sense?
He looks innocent. He looks honest. But I have to say, I compare him all the time to Trump. So everybody is innocent and a softie compared to Trump. But can you give a description, a short description of his character?
I can try. You know, again, not by... It's always hard to describe someone's character when you haven't... He's not somebody I hang around with. He's been in Washington for 42 years. I think he was first elected over 40 years ago into the Senate. People know his history, his personal history as well.
Can you tell us something about his personal history?
So he has a pretty tragic personal history. He was a very young, I think he was 29 when he was elected to the Senate. And I think a month and a half after that happened, can everybody hear me? I'm not sure if this works. Yeah. So I think a month and a half after that happened, his wife and his daughter of 1 year and a half, they died in a car crash. So that was between when he got elected and when he was, starting as a senator. Both his two sons were seriously injured, but they did survive. And then later on, this was 5 years ago, so decades later, his youngest son also passed away. I think he had a brain tumor. So the 4 decades that he's been in government, he's always spoken about that personal history. Everybody knew that he was this, that he just lost part of his family, and that has characterized him for a big part. That doesn't say anything about his character. It does say something about that he's very open. He's not very private. He always discussed this, and I think in a moment like this where America has been hit by COVID so hard, all these people dying over, I think, it's getting close to 250,000 or so. A lot of people in grief, they lost family members, and Joe Biden seems to be the person for this moment, in a sense. When he talks about his weaknesses, him always being open is a weakness as well, because as he says in this video, he makes a lot of political gaffes. That's a thing in Washington, in Congress and with the media. I'm not sure if voters really care, since voters make mistakes as well. You and I do as well. So maybe they connect to him in a way. He has a lot of political baggage. We can talk about this later. The left, he applauds himself for being a man of the middle, for being able to bring two parties together. The left, the progressive left, don't trust him. He voted for the war in Iraq. He's very close with credit card companies back home. So he's
he took some harsh measures against Afro-American people.
Yeah, so when it comes to criminal justice, which is with the social justice, Black Lives Matter protest right now, a big thing, obviously. Back in the 90s, he was the proponent of a crime bill that would put people away for years if they would only possess even a small amount of drugs. Back then, both Republicans and Democrats were in favor of this. This happened under President Clinton, but he proposed it. But Biden, the country has, even though we now have Trump, or the US now have Trump as a president, but the country over the past years has shifted to the left. And Biden has always moved to the left with it. So the Biden who was so tough on crime back in the 90s, he was the first. He came out in favor of gay marriage before Barack Obama did, and Barack Obama was this young, modern president, but this, this old white guy was in favor of it before Obama spoke out in favor of it.
Could you make a comparison? Because left in the United States means something different than left in the Netherlands. We have a right-wing prime minister, Rutte.
No, sure.
I think he's far left from Joe Biden. Could you?
Well, I mean, when we talk about liberals, we would call Mark Rutte a liberal, liberaal. Liberals in the U.S. They all fit into the Democratic Party. I think the whole, the whole political spectrum here, except maybe Wilders or Forum for Democracy, fit into the Democratic Party over there. I mean, it's a little hard to compare, and the whole political spectrum in the U.S. almost, maybe with Bernie Sanders as an exception, they fit into the VVD. So it's, but it has changed over the years.
Okay.
But coming back to
his character, I haven't
to this character, he seems honest.
I mean, he's been in Washington, which is a pretty corrupt place for 40 years. I don't know if he's honest. He's probably more honest than President Trump, because Trump's lies are often very obvious. He seems honest. He is a politician. He has, lied about his vote for the Iraq War. He's a smart guy.
Okay.
I'm not saying all politicians are liars, but if you're completely honest about everything, you don't succeed in politics for 40 years.
Okay, let's talk about the other guy, Donald Trump, and his lies. We show a short video.
So the future of our country, and indeed our civilization, is at stake on November 3rd. I'm the only thing standing between the American dream and total anarchy, madness, and chaos. And that's what it is. I'm representing you. I'm just here. And I'm not sure it's an enviable position, but that's what it is. It will be a totally different country, and ultimately it will fail. It will fail. It can't work. Economically, it can't work. We'll go into a depression, and I'm very good at predicting these things. We will go into a depression. I say this for the media. This will be the greatest catastrophe, one of the greatest catastrophes in the history of our country. That's how serious it is. And they also think I'm trying to steal an election. Just the opposite. I want the fair results of an election.
He says he is the one. The only person between the American dream and total madness and anarchy. Can you give it a try to describe him?
I mean, that's a too big of a question to describe him. But if you mean what he's doing here, this is what Nixon did. It's it's either you pick me or you pick the chaos.
Yes. There's only one solution.
Basically, yeah.
Yes.
Well, no, you have to. It's the politics of fear, and it has been successful in the past. It has been successful for Trump in the past, in 2016. So what he's trying to do, I mean, before the pandemic started, I think Trump's chances to get reelected were decent. It could have, it might have been close. It may still be close, but he had the economy to run on. Now the economy is down the drain, so he cannot run on the economy. He cannot run on how well he's done with the pandemic. I mean, he tries, but the American voter doesn't buy that. It's hard to run against the character of Joe Biden. He's tried, he made this whole thing about Biden and his son and the Ukraine scandal, which caused the impeachment trial. But people know Biden for 40 years, and they don't think he's a crook. People don't love Biden, but it's hard to hate Biden, where it was quite easy for many voters to hate Hillary Clinton. So he can't run on the economy, he can't run on the pandemic, he can't run on his opponent, really. He can't run on his own character, because people know that he lies a lot, and he's a narcissist. So I guess his so his belief is that the only thing he can run on is the image of when Biden and the radical Democrats, because there are Democrats like Sanders or Ocasio-Cortez who are on the left side of the Democratic Party, you know, if they get in charge, this will turn into a socialist, European, Cuban, Venezuelan nightmare. I doubt if that works, but that's what he's doing right now.
Yes.
Right now, and to describe him as a character, I mean, we all watch television. We hear him. What you see is what you get. You could say he's, no, you couldn't say he's honest, but what you see is what you get. And if you like that, you know, you should vote for him.
Yes,
but he doesn't. What you cannot accuse Trump of is pulling off political tricks, really. Because his advisors will tell him to do this or to say that, and you know, if you want to deal with Congress about relief for the, economic relief for the middle class, you have to go to Congress and talk to the leaders of the Democrats, and you have to make a deal. He doesn't do that. No. He stands here for a microphone and he says what he feels, and he says what he believes. So in that sense, what you see is what you get. What Trump doesn't seem to have, is empathy. And I think voters. I think that's one of the things they didn't like about Hillary Clinton, because to many voters she didn't seem to have a lot of empathy either. I don't know if that's correct, but describe Trump. It's hard.
Yes,
it's easy and it's hard.
Yes.
Yeah. You said that Trump is always going against the advices of his staff to say things. I want to mention one thing which was pretty ridiculous. Thank you. For me, that there was in the corona crisis, he said that people should inject themselves with disinfectant to get rid of corona. That stirred a great deal of media attention. Do you think he does that deliberately because he knows when he says such ridiculous things, the media will, Trump says this and that, and then people don't discuss his bad policies anymore. So is this smoke screen?
That's a very good question, and I've thought about this. I don't know. I think overall so his Steve Bannon, who used to be his campaign advisor, he had this rule, in order to distract the media, you have to flood the zone with shit. That was his, just throw everything out there, and the media they won't know what to do and where to go to and what to focus on. And, with Trump, I'm not sure. I don't think that. I mean, often when he begins a sentence, he's not sure how that sentence will end, which is the same for me and I guess many people. But I mean, he can change course in the middle of a sentence. I don't know if he said deliberately that you should inject yourself with, what was it?
Bleach, disinfectant or something.
Yeah, something like that. You could try, and he said, let's try sunlight or disinfectant. And I think the American media still are not sure how to deal with him, even though they got a little better, but not much. And I think that is to his advantage. I don't know if he deliberately uses it. The problem with Trump is that you don't know what is strategy or what is just, it's hard.
Okay.
Let's turn to the audience. Anybody with a question to Eelco Bosch van Rosenthal? Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, in order to define Biden, he says stuff like he's mentally, he's dement. How do you say that?
Dementia.
Dementia and
Alzheimer.
And he's mentally not, Alzheimer's, and he's mentally not completely stable and old. And I mean, they're almost the same age, I think. No, I guess Biden is about 4 years older. I don't know if that works. Actually, I mean, Biden sometimes addresses it, that he does make mistakes and gaffes. Biden is a pretty good debater, so if you see him in the debates with Trump, I'm not sure if the feeling that people have is that he's the one that's mentally unstable. I mean, I don't think it sticks. To be honest, this year I haven't been to the US a lot because of Corona, so I haven't spoken to many voters, but the voters I have spoken to, I mean, if they had a problem with Biden, it wasn't necessarily that he was mentally unfit or so. And also Biden he hasn't said it, but he has, I mean, he said that maybe he would only run one term, you know, which given his age makes sense. So he's 78 now, and he's not saying that he'll be in office until he's 86, and so he knows that his age is something to be aware of. But yeah, I think I think Trump is still looking for something to define Biden with, and I don't think he has found it. He's tried to portray him as a radical lefty, and then Biden said last week, you know, you've known me for 40 years. Do I look like a radical? So I don't think that sticks. I think, you know, he has a nickname for everybody, Crooked Hillary, and with Biden he tried a couple, Sleepy Joe, but it doesn't, you know, you need more than a nickname. I mean, Trump can beat Biden, but you need more. He needs more than a nickname. I think.
More questions over there.
Sorry, what do you mean about his vice president? You mean his running mate? Okay, no, that's a good question. Yeah, so he was a vice president for 8 years, and he was running against Biden in 2008, or against Obama in 2008, and then Obama, you know, he became the candidate and then the president, and he picked Biden. And apparently, I mean, Biden said yes to the vice presidency only if he really had a decent role. The vice presidency is a very, you know, it's a lot of ceremony, but not every vice president is really powerful. Dick Cheney was powerful, you know, he basically started the war in Iraq, and there are some other examples, Lyndon Johnson, when Kennedy was president, but there are many more examples of, I think Mike Pence may be one of them, of vice presidents that were there more for the ceremony, and the president, you know, kept them away from the decision making. Biden really wanted to be part of the decision making process, and he had a lot of. Biden was one of the most experienced senators when it came to foreign policy. Obama only was a senator for 2 years, so he didn't have that experience. Biden, you know, did a big chunk of the Obamacare a process, which was, you know, huge. So I guess that means that, well, as a president you don't have a choice, but as a vice president, Biden really wanted to be there when the decisions were taken. He has said that he expects the same of his vice president. So if Biden would get elected and Kamala Harris is the vice president, that will probably not be a very ceremonial role. That will be a very active role as well. And one other thing, when he was vice president, that's also one of the reasons why Obama picked him. Obama was, you know, exotic, African American from Hawaii. Not everybody was used to that. Joe Biden is from Pennsylvania, from a town called Scranton in the Midwest. Or no, not really the Midwest, but I mean, working class. You know, he would live in Delaware. He would always take the train to Washington instead of this limousine, and that's a bit of a, you know, he plays on that as well. But regular Joe, nobody's better in doing rope lines and shaking hands and hugging babies than Joe Biden. It's just what he loves, the retail of politics.
Okay, over there.
I mean, I'm not sure.
Repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. Well, I'm not sure if I get the question. You said, does he have all the power he claims to have? I mean, well, the power of the presidency is in the Constitution, so that's the most literal, you know. So when he claims to have, he does claim to have a lot of power. I mean, he says that he could overrule his attorney general in order to put people in prison, which with his attorney general may be possible. But I mean, but you know, he played with the idea, or he toyed with the idea of postponing the elections. That's one thing he cannot do, because he needs both houses of Congress for that. So in that sense, no. I mean, Everything Trump says is an exaggeration. So when he says that he has all that power, the power of the presidency is limited in the Constitution. But the American president does have a lot of power, a lot more than our prime minister. And the American president is above the law in many aspects. And we've seen that during the impeachment trial. So he does have a lot of power, but not any more power than his predecessors had.
Yes, I see one question over there, and then we are going to the second theme. So.
No, that's a good question. So the question is whether the left, the progressive left, the Bernie Sanders voters that indeed hated Hillary Clinton back in 2016, they didn't agree with 80% of what Biden did, whether they will come out and vote for Biden. I think most of them will. That has to do with now they have 4 years of Trump to look at. And if you're a lefty, then Biden is a lot better than Donald Trump. Just look at the courts. There's one thing that Trump has done which is revolutionary. He put judges in office all over the country. Mm-hmm. Judges can determine, they can shape American policy when it comes to so many things for decades. So if you're a progressive lefty and you're not voting for Biden, but staying home because you're mad, you're an idiot, because that's not in your interest at all. Also, there was I'm not sure whether that made a difference, but Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton didn't get along and don't get along at all. He campaigned for her, but it didn't seem it didn't seem like he meant it. Biden and Sanders get along. Sanders campaigns for Biden, with COVID, so virtual, but still. And what Biden did very smart when he won the nomination, he immediately put groups together, steering groups on climate change, on income inequality, on race, etc. And he put people of the Bernie Sanders camp in every one of these groups. So he really tried to get the left closer to his campaign. So I'm sure there'll be some who stay home disappointed. And, in a close election, even 20,000 people staying home can make a difference in one state. But I think it's a different story than back in 2016. You don't read and you don't hear a lot about it, the anger from the left right now.
Okay. We are going to look at the electorate, the voters, in a moment. But first we have a very nice movie from your documentary. I will introduce it because the introduction is in Dutch and then it will switch to English. President Trump is about to visit Austin, a factory of Apple, I believe. And there are voters on the left side of the road. I think they're Democrats. Yeah.
Democrats
on the right side,
yeah.
On the right side, there are it speaks for itself. Let's have a look.
Na 3 jaar Trump zijn de meningen over de president in beton gegoten. Amerikanen zijn voor of tegen hem en niemand lijkt zijn standpunt meer bij te stellen. Vandaag bezoekt Trump een fabriek van Apple in Austin, de hoofdstad van Texas. Een progressieve stad, maar ook zijn aanhangers zijn gekomen.
Progressive city.
Is he going to come by here, or?
We do believe his motorcade is going to turn in because that's the center. The visiting center is right here. So we believe he's going to.
Visiting center is right here.
Apple manufacturing center.
What do you think about the people across the street? Because I see a divide here.
We welcomed them to come over and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if we felt safe, we would go have a conversation, but I'm not quite sure that they're able to do that.
If you felt safe?
Felt safe, sure.
To do what?
To just have a conversation without being attacked.
You don't feel safe to cross the street?
No. No.
And they get violent. They are not tolerant of Christian viewpoint. They're not tolerant of anything that's different than their viewpoint. If it's different than theirs, it's a hater. If it's different from theirs, you're a racist. And that may not totally be true at all. It may not be true at all.
Somehow in the last 10 years, to love your country and be proud of where you're from is a bad thing. And
But many Democrats would disagree. They say they're proud of their country. They love America.
But they don't like the American flag. They burn it.
Democrats burn the flag. I see an American flag across the street.
That would be interesting to see which side he's really on. I don't know.
What do you mean? These are. You know, you see the signs. These are Democrats.
Well, he didn't carry a sign that's saying anything Democrat.
Having jobs.
Oh, I'm glad he's carrying a flag.
But if he is, that's great.
I'm really glad.
That would be really refreshing.
Yeah, that's something we have in common.
Excellent.
See, I think we should have something in common.
Zou het dan toch mogelijk zijn? Een soort halve handreiking naar de andere kant. Gelijk maar even daar de temperatuur op meten.
What brings you here?
I'm fighting for our country. I mean, I don't hate our flag. I love our country, and our country is run by the grassroots people. We're nothing to do with the giant corporations screwing us over. We want grassroots representation.
So what do you make of the people across the street who just told me that, you know, Democrats are embarrassed of the American flag and they will never carry it?
I'm a progressive. I'm a Democrat, and I'm a left Democrat. I'm proud of my country. I'll fight for my right to defend it. Let's have a little compassion in this country. I truly admire the way that Europe runs their countries. Give us a little democratic socialism.
Would you come across the street and see if we can talk to them?
Those guys have cooties.
Shall we talk to them?
No, I don't care to engage with the enemy. I will stand at the distance and have my own opinion.
But how will this...
This woman will probably vote for Biden if she's going to vote at all. Eelco, this was a bit. I don't know if this is representative for how the atmosphere is in the country. Could you say something? Yeah, could you say when you are in America, what's the feeling right now? How divided is the country?
Well, I mean, this is atypical in one sense. I mean, I think the moderates, even though everybody has made up their mind about Trump, or 98% probably, I think there are less swing voters than ever before. Most Americans hate what they see here. You know, they hate a Democrat calling the other, you know, saying that they have lies, and they hate the other side of the street, accusing the other ones of not being American. I mean, you know, the big chunk of the country is, even though they've made up their mind in this election, they are reasonable. Obviously, I mean, they're like us, reasonable people, and in the same time, the polarization has always been there from the 70s on, with presidents like Nixon, who really, you know, saw a chance to win elections in that polarization. It got worse in the 90s with Clinton. It got worse with Bush and the Iraq War. It got worse with Obama. It got worse, and often the response is a reaction to, you know, they considered Obama to be exotic and too far to the left, and that's when the Tea Party came. You know, the Tea Party was basically a right-wing political movement before Trump, but Trump is basically the higher of the Tea Party movement. You saw Occupy Wall Street on the other hand, you know, a left-wing group. So the polarization, that's gotten worse, and it's gotten worse in Congress as well. So when Biden started out as a senator 40 years ago, you know, the Democrats and Republicans would agree on a deal or on foreign policy or on a tax deal. I mean, there were differences. I mean, it's a two-party state basically, but you know, they could work out a compromise. That has completely disappeared from Congress basically. So let's say Biden wins the election, if he does, but Congress, both Senate and the House, are still in Trump's hands, then Biden, you know, he may as well quit because he can't do anything. And vice versa. I mean, Trump cannot, the only thing Trump can get something done right now is because the Senate is still in Republican hands. So,
what does this mean for the country? It's you've got two captains on a ship. Nothing gonna happen. It's a bad situation.
And it's a terrible situation, and it's always been this way. I mean, not always, but Obama was there for 8 years, and for only the first 2 years he had the Democratic House and Senate. So only during that 2-year window he could, you know, for instance, have Obamacare. the country is stuck, basically. I mean, politically, it doesn't get anything done.
Yeah.
It does get something done. I mean, there is a relief package now for Corona because they know that both of them are in trouble if you don't offer any help with this economic crisis. But no, it's terrible. And it means that because the division, I'm going to generalize a little bit, but it's basically as if, I mean, both parties are split. So you have the Democratic Party, and then you have the Sanders AOC, Ilhan Omar Party, which is almost a different party. And then the right, you have the traditional Republicans. They don't have any power anywhere now because they're taken over by Trumpism, basically. But the two parties are split as well. But the country, it's more and more rural versus urban. You know, the cities vote for the Democrats, the rural areas for the Republicans. They watch different TV channels, they eat different food, and they feel different about, you know, climate change, injecting yourself with bleach and that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not just politics where this country is polarized, and looking for silver linings, it's hard. I think that the younger generation, when it comes to climate change and believing in science and believing, if you're in favor of that, which I am, and everybody here, in, you know, gay marriage and that kind of stuff. I mean, young Republicans are massively in favor of gay marriage as well. You know, Trump says he is as well, even though his presidency has done a lot of unfriendly things for gays. But maybe the silver lining is that when the younger generation takes over, they seem to have more in common than the older generations. But no, it's a horrible situation for a country to be in.
Okay. And you mentioned the Corona crisis, that it brought them a little bit more together, but isn't it also dividing the country further, the crisis?
Yeah, I don't think I said, or I didn't mean to say that the Corona, maybe I said it, I didn't mean to say that the Corona crisis brought them closer together.
It's an external enemy.
Well, I mean, no, it made, sorry, yeah, I mean, they had to come with some kind of economic relief for everybody that lost their job. So, you know, otherwise both parties, otherwise everybody, well, the economy would go down the drain and everybody would lose confidence in politics. So, you know, so the Democrats and the Republicans, they did agree on a first and I believe a second aid package.
Okay.
But I mean, that's not because they love each other, just because they had to do something.
They have no choice.
Like any other country.
Yeah. And sorry, you mentioned the media. That's interesting because you're a journalist yourself. I think Nieuwsuur is a pretty neutral television program.
Not everybody agrees, but I think so.
Okay. Okay, but
no, I think so. I think we are. I know we are.
But in the US, you have Fox News, which is typically pro-Trump, and you have CNN and MSNBC, which is left-wing. So also the media landscape is completely polarized.
Oh yeah, the landscape.
We can't imagine it in the Netherlands. We don't have that.
No, I mean Fox News obviously is immensely powerful right now. Fox News has some really good, decent journalists, but when the evening starts, the opinion, the propaganda wing of the network takes over, and it is propaganda. There's nothing. I mean, it's not. I don't think they claim to be journalists. I mean, it's no, but seriously, I mean, it's terrible. And MSNBC on the left that's basically. I mean, they don't lie as much. I don't think they lied that much, but it's not neutral either. CNN is the most neutral one, even though they have shifted. It's not to the left that much, but they shifted towards anti-Trump more and more over the past years because it's good for ratings. So no, it's and every newspaper that, I mean, the New York Times is still the paper of record. It's still the newspaper of the political class that Republicans and Democrats would read the first thing in the morning. And they're under fire both from the left, who think they're too kind to Trump just to get the news, the scoops, and from the right, obviously. So the media, I just wrote a big piece about this, which will appear in Vrij Nederland in a few weeks. The media is really in an identity crisis because they don't know how to handle Trump, and then they don't know how to handle themselves when it comes to these Black Lives Matter protests, racism, etc. It's a very interesting time for the American media.
Yes, I can imagine. Okay.
You said before that there are now less swing voters than before. What makes people turn from Republican to Democratic, or Democratic to Republican, or from not voting at all to vote?
Well, that's a little hard to say in a general sense.
Yes,
I mean,
but during this election and during this year.
Well, I mean, in this election, most people, according to all the polls, seem to have made up their minds. You know, I mean, because it's and the reason for this is Trump. You either like what he does or you don't. But it's really hard to you know, it's
so
it's
the
really
swing
hard.
voters think.
I mean, it usually about I think usually about 20 to 30% of the. I mean, you have 40% or something Republicans, 40% Democrats. That's more or less.
Yes,
you know.
and then you have 20%.
And then 20 to 30% is, let's say 20% hasn't made up their mind yet. That's usual in an election. They are up for grabs, and they can. I've spoken to tons of people who voted for Obama twice and then for Trump, just because. You know, they don't feel obliged to vote for one particular party. They gave Obama a chance and another chance. They feel like their life has not improved. Clinton was part of the Obama clique, so they voted for Trump. I mean, you know, they don't feel any party loyalty. That's different this time. I mean, I'm sure you can vote. You can find people who voted for Hillary 4 years ago, and they will now vote for Trump. Of course, that happens, but not that much.
Okay.
Trump is an exception because it's.
You either love or hate him.
Yeah, and he's not. Yeah, of course, and there's hardly any middle ground when it comes to Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions in the audience regarding this theme, please?
I mean, it's.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Is Biden able to reunite the country?
Yeah, that's basically, is Biden able, you know, such a division, is Biden the man to... He himself seems to believe that. I think he's realistic, and he probably knows that this division is not something that one politician can bridge. But again, Biden grew up in an era politically where Republicans and Democrats did get along and they could make deals. So even 8 years ago, when did Biden leave the Senate? In 2008. So even 2008. Yeah. So 12 years ago, when he left the Senate was even a different place. So maybe he's a little naive, and he actually believes he can bring the country together. I think any president after Trump is less divisive than Trump is, just because. I think Trump knows he's divisive, because that's his strategy, if it is a strategy, to win these elections. But I don't think the division in the country is something that one politician or one president can bridge. I mean, maybe he'll do a little better, but you know, I mean, even if Trump is voted out of office, Trumpism doesn't disappear. There are many politicians like him who got into the Senate. Again, in the Senate and the House specifically. The House is more radical from both sides than the Senate. I mean, the middle has disappeared. And people, maybe some who are more eloquent than Trump, have seen that you can win the presidency by stirring up this division, by lying more often than most people breathe. So so I think Trumpism may be here to stay. And Biden is not the magic pill that will make it go away.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions? Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah. The question is about social media. What will be the role?
What the impact will be? Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I think it's one of the questions this year, and I also think we don't know. Everybody's very worried about it. Facebook obviously being a huge player. I mean, Facebook is amazing. The impact that Facebook can have during this election is huge, and the power that one person has. I think Mark Zuckerberg gave an interview last week, and they discussed this. You know, what if, which the president before has not done, what if Trump, when half of the votes are counted on election night, would say, you know, I won the election. That's being amplified over Facebook. What does Facebook do? Facebook has now, I think, pulled the plug on election ads, campaign ads during the last week of the campaign, so before November 3rd. That may make a difference, or it may not. Trump is now investing, I think they invested $65 or $70 million into YouTube, so that's twice as much as Biden has. So apparently YouTube, which is owned by Google, is for the Trump campaign. They have a strategy there. What does YouTube have a policy for fake news, as Facebook claims to have? You know, it's really impossible to predict.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg, what do you think? Will he vote for Democrats or the Republicans? That might make a difference, or
what he votes.
Yeah, what he votes.
He lives in California, so that doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
That's gonna vote Democratic anyway. Now, I don't know what he. I mean, most people in Silicon Valley, he probably votes for the Democrats. I think. I'm not sure.
It's a weird idea. That's so influential. Those media.
It's a weird guy.
Yeah. Okay. I think we round off this theme.
Yes.
If it's okay with you and
Yes.
and with you.
We've solved the problem of polarization.
Yes,
Well,
we did. More or less. We got another
photo.
Yeah,
Yes.
another very interesting
because
theme.
The third theme is about QAnon, and here you see a photo of supporters of Trump.
Yeah.
And they have a Q on their mobile phone. I read something about this QAnon theory, and it seems very weird to me.
You think?
Yeah, to me, I think people who believe in this theory about the deep state, they remind me of people who think the Earth is flat, or that we are surrounded by aliens.
I think both those, the Earth being flat and being surrounded by aliens, make a little more sense than what these.
Because in short, they think there is an elite who runs America.
Well, that's so far. That part is true.
That's true. But it's a mysterious group. They for instance, they buy children. They kill them. They have sex with them before they kill them, I suppose. But well, it's
not sure what the theory. It may be both in that theory. No, QAnon. I think yeah. Sorry.
Can you tell us something about QAnon before I say?
Well, it's like I'm not even sure where it originated. The Volkskrant had a really good article a few weeks ago. I think it's QAnon.
Okay.
Yeah.
QAnon.
I think so. The thing is, they think that. So it started out obviously on the internet and web fora, etc.
Yes.
You had an incident, I think 2 or maybe 3 years ago, of a well-known pizza place in Washington D.C. These QAnon people, and it wasn't this big back then. They said that the Democratic Party, like Hillary Clinton and her campaign manager, had a pedophilia ring inside the basement of the pizzeria. Yes. It sounds obviously ridiculous, but a few years later, now there are supporters of this QAnon theory who may be elected into Congress in November. Yes. Only 2 or 3, maybe. I mean,
do you think it's mainstream or still?
No. It's not mainstream. It's a complete.
A fringe.
It's a complete lunatic right. Not even. I mean, it's right, but it's also left. And I mean, 99% of Republican office holders, they have said these people are crazy. I mean, it's not. The thing is, Trump doesn't.
Trump likes to flirt.
Trump likes to flirt with them.
Yes.
He doesn't. So I mean, the only thing to do with these people, and that's not a left-right thing, is to just condemn it and say you people are idiots and don't vote for these people.
Yes.
Trump would never say that. He wouldn't disavow the radical right, and he wouldn't disavow these people because, you know, maybe it's one vote or 2 that
he
can
said
help him.
they love America and they supposedly love me.
So but the theory behind it, and it's so yesterday at the Media Park where I work in Hilversum, there was a demonstration of the viruswaanzin, so the anti-COVID. So the people think everybody's sitting apart here is ridiculous because COVID is just a flu. Some people there had these QAnon slogans with them. I know it's getting big in Germany. It's not, and it will go away. But it's still a fringe movement.
Yes.
But I was surprised to see, 1 or 2 of these people in Hilversum. I don't. This will not influence the election. I mean, it may get dangerous in the sense that the pizza place in Washington 2 years ago, there was a guy with a gun who went there to. He didn't kill anybody, but because he was captured. But he said he went to the pizza place to save children.
Yes.
I know something bad may happen, but it's still fringe, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's a factor in these elections.
Okay.
Famous last words.
Questions from you about conspiracy theories like this one.
I mean,
it's even in the Netherlands because you have Lange Frans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So, like I said, so he's one of the.
Yes, he believes it.
America has a long tradition of conspiracy theories. I mean, from the JFK assassination to 9/11. I mean, it's a long tradition. It's
the Roswell incident with
the Roswell incident with UFOs. I mean, it has to do with I mean, there's been a lot of books written about this, but it has to do about the distrust in government and authority, which also has to do with the fact that it's a young country and a young government.
And they have a common story.
It's a lot of a lot of space. So stay off my land, basically. And it's so. I mean, America has always been a fertile ground for conspiracy theories. But this is weird shit.
Yes.
I mean, this is beyond any other JFK assassination theory. This is just complete nuts.
But you don't think this will will have an effect on the election?
No, I don't think so. I mean, these people will probably, all of them, if they do vote, they would vote for Trump. But I mean, they would probably vote for Trump, and they were probably Republicans before this anyway. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it'll be a big factor.
Okay. Then we're going to the fourth theme.
The climate change, which is an important theme, of course, because it affects all of us, the whole planet, not only. And we have a nice. Let me see. Oh yeah, this is a very short but illustrative. It's also in Dutch again, but it's about the pictures. You will understand what it's about.
Faced with the crisis of climate change that is going to impact an entire generation if we don't do something really fast.
This is the world's largest gas station. You're going to think here of
Zoals ze in Texas zelf zeggen, everything is bigger in Texas. Alleen deze staat zelf, waar je kan 12 uur rijden van oost naar west en dan ben je er nog steeds. Gelukkig hebben ze ook een van de grootste tankstations in de wereld. 120 pompen hebben ze hier.
120 pumps.
Ongelooflijk.
No, it says enough, I think. And Eelco, the gasoline costs about, what was it? We pay one.
It's really hard because I have to go from gallons to liters to dollars to euros.
But
so I lost it, but I think I'm saying it.
You say it. We will just.
Je betaalt hier voor benzine $2,2 per gallon. Dat is omgerekend 50 cent per liter.
Yeah, 50 euro cents a liter. So. Yeah, that's.
If my calculation was right.
I think so. Yeah, we will. I think, but it's way cheaper, of course, than so. 120 pumps, the largest, one of the largest gas stations in the world. My question is about climate change. In the beginning, Trump he said it's a hoax of the Chinese. He had phrases like "it's freezing in New York," "where the hell is the global warming," things like that. In the meantime, I think about 130 steps were taken by the Trump administration to scale back measures to fight climate change. So he did a lot of things in real life to reduce all kinds of climate change measures. The US retreated from the Paris Agreement. But how are things today? Is he still denying climate change? I read somewhere that he is he names himself an environmentalist who likes clean air and water. But now we're into the elections. How is he shifting on this theme?
It's not in the elections. It's not a factor right now.
Okay.
I mean, well, maybe for some voters it is. I mean, Biden has a climate plan, and so for the Democrats it is a topic. But I think overall for most voters right now, this is not based on research, just on my idea. I mean, there's so much going on right now with the economic crisis being, top of mind for most voters, that it's not, even though it should be, it's not the biggest issue right now. Does he still believe it's a hoax? Yeah, probably, or at least he says that he still believes it's a hoax. I think the hoax for him is not that that the planet is heating up, but that humankind is responsible for it. I mean, it's so hard to say what Trump believes, because often he says, you hear different things. We're going to look into it. So he always. Yeah, besides pulling out of the Paris Accord, he's done. It's a very business-friendly administration. So one of the things he has done is getting rid of the regulations in almost any industry. So dumping filthy water in the national parks, and workplace regulations, all that kind of stuff. He got rid of it. So. So yeah, it's in that sense, his administration has not done any good for the environment.
No, okay.
Administrations before him have, even though under Obama the Paris Accord, was implemented, but his administrations before him were slow on climate change as well.
And
like here.
And could you say something about Biden? How green is he?
I think you have the Green New Deal, which is a plan that Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, most progressive, one of the most progressive House members. This is her plan with somebody else. I think Biden embraced most of it, not all of it. It's always a matter of, especially with this economic crisis, it costs a lot of money, and he's saying that in order to implement every measure that the Green New Deal, every measure that's in the Green New Deal, there's simply not enough money for it. But he's, on every measure, which is ironic because Biden, again, he's a moderate and he's always been careful. But with every measure, he is more to the left than Obama was, and climate change is one of them. So if he is elected, he could be the most progressive president since Roosevelt, and he has said that himself. And the Roosevelt administration was an administration of big, gigantic projects when it comes to infrastructure and social justice and that kind of stuff. So, and the environment may be one of his signature projects if he does get elected, but I think it's a little too soon to tell.
Okay, and how much? Maybe I don't know if you can answer the question, but I'm going to ask him. How much is the U.S. suffering because of climate change? In your documentary, you went to Houston, where Harvey, the hurricane, came by, and in 2 days you had 1 meter and 30 centimeters of water. So that was really a flooding of biblical proportions. You have a lot of forest fires near California. Is it a theme, or are they worried? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like in most places, when it comes to drought, forest fires, hurricanes. I mean, it's I think hurricane season every year is getting a little longer and a little more intense.
Heavier,
I don't know the exact numbers. I just know that and sometimes there's a year where it dies off a little bit, but overall, the big natural disasters like the forest fires and the droughts also in Texas, they get worse and worse every year. So, I mean, the U.S. is feeling that like any other nation.
Okay. Are there any questions on climate change? Nando, please.
No, that's definitely true.
So it's about the influence of the energy big-scale companies on Trump's climate policy.
Well, I mean, the big energy companies, and we saw that in Texas as well. I mean, many of them are slowly adapting. And, for instance, in Texas, there's also more. I mean, I've never seen so much wind energy mills than before. So that is slowly, but at the same time, the big sponsors of Trump and the Republican Party are still the old-fashioned and the ExxonMobils and et cetera. But I do think it's the case that especially when solar and wind, when they find a way to make more money out of that, is that, an oil city like Houston, for 98%, I think, gets their electricity from renewables. So I think if that's what you mean, we don't know how long Trump is going to be in office, but even if it is another 4 years, I think when his sponsors will adapt, and you can't say that there's no realization that climate change is happening with these energy companies when he may slowly change as well. But that's not because of science, I believe, on his part. That's just because the people who fund his campaign and other Republicans' campaigns demand a change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're going to talk about the dollars and the politics in a couple of moments. So, yeah, thank you. Are there any more questions on climate-related topics? Yeah, go ahead.
No, not really, and not this.
Would you repeat it?
The Green New. So the Democrats have put forward a plan. Not every Democrat agrees with it, but the Green New Deal. So a pretty ambitious green energy and climate plan. Now the question is whether the Republicans have something similar. They don't, but that's also because and there are many moderate Republicans who agree that something needs to be done, and maybe the Green New Deal is going, a little too far for them, if only for the amount of government interference. But many of the moderate Republicans have been voted out of office. So the House, for instance, the Senate is a little different, but the House of Congress, the House of Representatives, there's hardly no moderate Republican left anymore. So within the Republican Party, themes like climate change, I think they basically are put on the back burner until Trumpism is over. So to answer your question, is there a Republican plan? No, there's not. Not that I know of.
Okay. Shall we switch to Black Lives?
Black Lives Matter.
Of course, we can talk with you for hours on climate change and the politics behind it, but we want to highlight some themes which are also relevant.
I think this theme, Black Lives Matter, is more important right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's more important. Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any more important topic than climate change on voters' minds. This is. It may be a bigger factor in the elections. Yeah.
Yes, because I read this book about America, Jill Lepore, The Case for the Nation, and you see that in America there has always been a lot of social injustice and racial prejudices. Think about the Ku Klux Klan or Martin Luther King in the past century. But now, this year, you see a tremendous influx of protest about racial issues. It started with the death of George Floyd and the near death of Jacob Blake. We can show a little movie in which you see the attack on Jacob Blake. Shall we show it now? Yes, we can show it afterwards.
It's not nice. It's not nice to watch.
It's not nice.
No,
I have to say this.
People have probably seen it. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't see it because I always read the paper and I don't look at movies. But it's horrible to see. But it's just a short movie.
Shall we show it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I've seen it. Oops. He survived. He gave his first interview yesterday.
Luckily he survived.
Not that doesn't make this better, but
no, exactly.
No.
Yeah, it's just
Wow.
We can say a lot about this, But one question I would like to ask, the Republican Party still gives a lot of attention to the problems of the white man and woman. But they are also diminishing in numbers, the white men in America. Why don't they pay more attention to people with a color? Because it's not strategic to focus on the white man for the Republican Party.
No,
and
that's
they
true.
do.
Yeah. After the first, I mean, let's first stress that, so Trump is, and then I'll get to your question. I mean, everybody obviously has condemned this.
Yes.
Republicans as well. Trump has done so as well.
Yes.
Trump's response, though, is that white people are just as often shot as black people. So I mean, he said this should not have happened, but his response after that has been out there. But in 2012, Obama won re-election against Mitt Romney, and that was a shock for the Republicans because Mitt Romney really thought, even on election night, that they were going to win. And one of the things they were shocked by was the amount of, or was the number of Hispanic and African American voters, but especially Hispanics that voted for the Republicans. They thought it would be a lot bigger, and they basically said after that election 8 years ago, in order to keep winning elections in the future in a country where demographics are changing rapidly. Yes. I mean, right now African Americans are, I think 12 or 13% of the population, and Hispanics I'm not sure, but I mean it's shifting. You know, a place like Texas will be a majority state soon, which means that whites will be a minority and non-whites will be a majority. So the Republicans try to come up with ways to. They talk more about social, a little more, not a lot more, but about social justice. They started. Talking about how their economic policies has shifted the African American population as well. The economy until the pandemic started was doing well, and Trump, Trump was saying, unemployment among African Americans has never been this low, which was true. I mean, that wasn't because of his policies, but it went down during the Obama years and then during Trump as well. So the Republican Party tried to. They were aware of the problem, that it would be hard in the future to win elections until, for instance, Hispanics, who are culturally often more aligned with the Republican Party. Many people from Central America are Catholics. Maybe they feel, they are more Republican when it comes to social issues. But then Trump happened in 2016, and every ambition they had about reach, and Trump obviously was a response to the changing demographics of America. So there are many people within the Republican Party who think about this. Who there have been books and reports written. So we won this election with Trump, and maybe Trump will win another election, and maybe somebody after him will win another election. But then eventually, the demographics of America in 2050, so in 30 years, will not vote for a Republican unless they turn to the right or the Republicans turn turn to the left. So your question was why don't they think about this more? They do think about it, but I mean the Trump years, whether it's just these 4 years or another 4 years, will be a waste of time because nothing's going to happen in that. Trump will not appeal. I mean, I think he's doing slightly better, amazingly enough, in the polls with African Americans than 4 years ago. I mean, slightly, like it was 6%, and now in the polls, I think it's 7%. I don't know why that is, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot.
But if another accident happens during these demonstrations,
this was not an accident. No, you mean another shooting, like
another
this.
shooting?
Yeah,
I mean, yes, because it can happen easily. You just saw it. There will be more turmoil, more unsafety. whereas Trump states that he is the president of law and order. Is this not his weak point, that he can't address these people and give them the assurance that he takes care of them,
I mean,
that he sees their problems?
So what he tries to do, obviously, is campaign on the unrest by saying, if you vote for Biden, this is what you get. So they make ads with all the unrest in the American cities right now, which doesn't happen in most cities, and most protests are still peaceful. But there are definitely riots and criminals and crooks, and a radical right supporter was shot and killed by an Antifa guy, a left-wing guy. So this is all happening. So he's saying this is Biden's America. If you vote for him, this is what you get. The problem is that this is happening in Trump's America.
Yes.
So it's a very strange strategy, which may work with his base, because everything works with his base.
Yes, they truly believe in him.
Vote for him anyway.
Yes.
But it's a huge gamble they're taking, I think. And, but it's again, he doesn't have a lot of stuff to run on successfully. So this is the bet that he is basically taking. He's aligning Biden with Antifa and the radicals, and I think Biden responded a little late. But I strongly doubt if it's a winning tactic.
Okay.
And the polls say, I mean, and that is also something that has changed, because Black Lives Matter, I think, exists since 2009 or 2012 or something. But I mean, the support for Black Lives Matter, especially after the George Floyd protests, had really grown. I mean, most Republicans support Black Lives Matter. That has changed over the past few weeks a little bit, with the protests and things getting out of hand. But I mean, most people and most Americans, most Republicans as well, obviously didn't like what they just saw. The guy getting in the car and being shot. I mean,
and the issue of weapons.
Yeah, well, that's one of the we said earlier that urban versus rural. They are watching different TV programs. Weapons is one of the things. I mean, I know many Democrats who carry weapons. More so in rural areas, because they feel they have to protect their property, etc. But I mean, weapons is one of these topics that is where support for stricter gun measures is very much determined by which party you identify yourself with. And guns is not an issue in this campaign. I mean,
Biden doesn't use that argument, or is he silent? Because
both sides have guns. You've seen Black Lives Matter demonstrators with guns. You have seen an Antifa, so the extreme left group, which is not really a group, but they shot a guy with a gun. And then the right obviously uses probably more guns. But if Biden would start talking about guns, then the Republicans would put that in a clip and edit it with the left carrying guns.
Okay, so he's silent about it.
Not about the protests, but
of course,
there's a big plan. I mean, he wants stricter gun control, and that's part of his platform. And he has plans for every. But right now in the campaign, guns is not really an issue.
Okay.
I mean, the economy is an issue. The pandemic is an issue. The protest is an issue. Racism is an issue. Unrest in general is an issue. Character is an issue. America's, being the laughingstock of the world is an issue, but guns is not an issue. Climate change is not an issue.
No.
I mean,
okay. But maybe here. I see a finger over there.
Yeah. No, so the question is whether, I mean, many of these cities are run by Democrats where things go wrong now, and whether there are any local Republican politicians, basically trying to take over, winning elections. And the thing is, most American cities are run by Democrats, like 80%. So that also means that, so most peaceful American cities are also led by Democrats, and the most violent are also run by Democrats. Like a city of Baltimore, just outside of, or an hour outside of Washington, that's been run, like you said, by Democrats for 40 years or whatever. African Americans mostly. Highly corrupt mostly. I mean, it's a very corrupt city like Chicago was and Detroit was. Yeah, and there, I mean, these politicians many of them were corrupt and all of them were Democrats. And this is what Trump says as well. You know, this happens in Republican-run cities, etc. The thing is, again, they are mostly run by Democrats. When Rudy Giuliani, Trump's fixer, a lawyer, whatever, when he was the mayor of New York, it was more violent than when he started out. Than when De Blasio right now was the mayor. I mean, I don't think this is something that sticks. But yeah, no, I mean, Republicans in every one of these cities, you know, campaign. Obviously, there's always a Republican candidate for mayor. But like a city like Baltimore, where, you know, it's majority African American, and they will vote for Democrats, and they will keep voting the corrupt officials into office. I mean, there are many corrupt Republican politicians, but not as much in these cities.
More questions over there? A civil war coming on.
Yeah. I mean, I get this question a lot. Yeah, the civil war. I think there's a few things. I think I don't think, first of all, there's more police violence than there was before. It's always been terrible. It's being captured because everybody has a phone. It's being captured more, and it's easily spread by social media, and so that's one of the reasons, or I think the reason why there's more protests now. Because, you know, when you live in Florida, you can, you know, half an hour after it happened, you see this terrible shooting in Wisconsin, which is thousands of miles away. So I think that's the main reason for these protests becoming so big. Obviously, gun possession is one of them as well. And I think Trump is a reason as well, just because both his supporters and his opponents get very angry, emotional because of him. I mean, Black Lives Matter originated under Obama because the African American community, or at least the people behind it, were not satisfied with Obama's response to police violence. That's why it started. It started out as a protest movement, not against Obama as a person, but against, you know, the political class that Obama was a part of. But they did feel like they were taken seriously, or at least the administration was not working against them. Right now, President Obama called Black Lives Matter. What was the exact phrase? He called it something like a national security threat, or, you know, just a protest movement, not the rioters, the people who actually, you know, ruin windows and whatever. He was actually talking about the protest movement, peaceful protesters. So I think when you have a president saying things like that, you have no inclination to leave the streets. And so, yeah, of course, it's escalating. I mean, a civil war? No. I mean, I don't know what a civil. I know what a civil war is, but I mean, there was an actual civil war, and hundreds of thousands of people were killed, and that's not going to happen this time. Will we see more of this stuff? Yeah, sure. Is it going to be a very heated election season? I think we have 6 or 7 more weeks, or 8. Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. I think when Trump is, you know, if Trump is voted out of office and he actually does leave, then I think I wouldn't be surprised if things get a little better in that sense. If he has another 4 years, maybe this is the new normal. I mean, it's hard to say.
Another question.
If Biden has announced plans to combat within the police force systemic racism, yeah, I mean, he said a number of things, and this is not, you know, there are some cities where they experiment with things like, you know, training about racial sensitivities, more body cams and more cameras. There are cities where often when the Pentagon, so that when the army has stuff they can't use anymore, it's often sold to local police departments, which sounds ridiculous, but that's why you see Humvees in the streets of some cities, which make, that people respond to that. And Biden has endorsed many of these initiatives, from, giving people sensitivity trainings, teaching police officers in school about the history of racism, a more diverse police corps, how do you call it, corps? Even though there are African Americans who, go way out of, African American officers who go way out of line as well. There's a list of things that you could do, and some of them have been successful, and Biden has basically endorsed them all. What Biden has not done, even though Trump has said so, is endorsed the idea that the police should be defunded, that there should not go any taxpayers' money to the police department in Minnesota or in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He has not endorsed that. Biden is very careful, even though Trump wants to portray him as the candidate of disorder. Biden is very careful to, not to step into that frame, basically. Yeah, there are 3 debates. Well, 3 debates between Trump and Biden. I think the first is on September 29, if I'm not mistaken. Then there are 2 more. I don't think there will be a live audience, or maybe some, but not. Then there's a debate between Harris and Pence, so the vice presidential candidates. So the first one is, I think, September 29, and then there's up to the end of October or so, or half mid-October. So there are 4. And debates can be important, even though 4 years ago it depends on what you want to get out of a debate. Clinton is a good debater. She stuck to the facts more than Trump did, obviously, but Trump still won. It's often an expectations game. If you don't, and Trump is always the winner of that game, because if you don't expect anything, then he'll do better. But
over there.
Who do you think is going to win the election?
Good
that
question.
Was our last
I'm
question.
not known for my right predictions.
No, but you predicted that Hillary Clinton would win.
Exactly.
Prediction.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not.
I remember. Yeah.
Journalists should not predict, and like many, I did, and I was wrong. So I shouldn't. No,
give it a try.
No. Biden is the favorite, and that's not just when you look at the polls, but also when you look at what's going on in the country right now. But specifically when you look at the polls, there are like 14 swing states, 5 or 6 swing more than the other. But he's leading in every poll, and then people would say, yeah, but 4 years ago the polls were wrong. The polls were not as wrong 4 years ago as we think they were. It was really a difference of, 30,000 votes in Wisconsin here, and the polls were wrong, but they were, like for 95% accurate. But Biden is definitely the favorite, but the margins are small almost everywhere. So I would, maybe Trump has a 30% chance of winning or something. But that's still a lot. The thing is, this election, there are more uncertainties than ever before. What's going to happen over the next 2 months when it comes to social unrest? Most unpredictable president ever. What will Facebook and foreign influence do? Who is going to vote? How are these votes going to be counted? There will be more votes by mail than ever before. Will they be sent back in time, and will they count? Will we have a winner on the election night, November 3rd, or not? There's so many uncertainties. But you cannot say that Trump is the favorite right now. He can win, obviously, but he's not the favorite, in my opinion.
There's
over there, because you weren't. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, you are.
Well, it's a good. I think first the question is, let's assume, and this is a very likely scenario. I'm not saying it will happen, but it's very likely. This election night will be different. So usually either at 2 at night when Florida gets cold or so, or maybe at 5 at night. I think last time was 3 a.m. here in the morning that the election gets called, because they know for sure that, you know, there may not be an election. There may not be a winner this time because of all the mail ballots that needs to be, and every state has different. Sometimes a ballot needs to be, you know, stamped, so the post stamp needs to be dated on the day of the election, and sometimes they have another day or something. You know, the rules are different per state. Usually, with another president, when this was the case, let's say that Biden would run against Mitt Romney. I don't know. You know, people who basically stick to the rules, but you still have a pandemic. They would be responsible during the evening and say, you know, I'm not going to claim victory until all the ballots are counted, which may be in 2 or 3 days. What's very likely is that Trump, when he's leading in the votes that are actually cast on election day, and Fox News, you know, says that at 2 or 3 at night, that he will claim victory. And when Trump claims victory, and that's being amplified over Facebook and etc., you know, and then there's so much noise. Trump basically said, you know, I won, and his supporters will claim he won, and then Biden said, yeah, no, we're not finished counting yet. I mean, that's a terrible situation for a democracy, and that's never happened before. And I think it's a very likely scenario, unless Biden, you know, wins in a landslide. Trump, if Trump wins, it will probably not be in a landslide. You know, there's no real definition for a landslide, but meaning that he wins, you know, 30 states or whatever. With 40 states. With either Biden wins in a landslide, or it can be close. And if it's going to be close, what I just described is a very likely scenario. But when he does, I mean, it's hard to predict what Trump is going to do. But those saying that if he loses, he will not leave office, I don't buy that. That would take some guts, and I don't think he would do that. What I don't think will happen, no matter what, if Biden wins, Trump will probably never admit that maybe he will. I mean, he will then leave, but he will never admit that he lost fairly. He lost the popular vote in 2016. Hillary Clinton won 3 million votes more than Trump did. And Trump, up to today, he says that, you know, the only reason she won the popular vote was because over 3 million people voted illegally. So he will never, even if Biden wins, he will never admit that that he lost. He will probably say, you know, if you guys, you know, if this is a conspiracy that you want to be a part of as an American voter, you know, screw you, and I'll go back to New York. But he'll never admit that he lost by the rules. But I don't think he'll, you know, what's he going to do? Just stay there and, you know, swallow the key? I don't think that.
Swallow the key instead of bleach.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want to be nervous with us on the evening of the election, we have an evening program on the 3rd of November called Who's Afraid of Donald Trump? Yeah. We are not. So you can join us that evening. No. Yeah. We are running out of time, so yes, a lot of questions we can't ask.
To be unanswered.
But you told us a lot this evening.
Gelukkig.
Yes. So I want to thank the audience here. I want to thank the people in the live stream over there. But most of all, I want to thank you. An applause.
Thank you very much.